This is the A to Z podcast. I'm Zach Jackson. He's Andre Knott at Akron Jackson at Dre Knott on most of your favorite social media platforms. At Facebook.com/A to Z podcast, at A to Z podcast.com. Shouts as always to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, to our longtime friends at American Fireworks in Hudson. Always open 24/7 at AmericanFireworks.com. Dre, I know you're in Arizona, where the weather is almost always nice. It kind of feels like fireworks weather here today. It is St. Patrick's Day, early afternoon Eastern time as we're recording this. Just kind of setting the stage for everybody. Not that you would know the difference, but there's a small chance we'll get 10 or 15 minutes into this and then have to reset if the Browns do make a significant free agency move. They made one on Monday. We'll see. The NCAA tournament starts this week. Baseball is just around the corner. The Cavs is the Cavs, as my buddy Juju would say. I don't know where to start, Dre. How are you, buddy?
I'm all right. The weather actually hasn't been great here so far. Not that anybody. I mean, it's been kind of what it is back at home. So it's been a little bit cooler than what we're used to. I'm sure it'll heat up sooner or later. Then I know no one right now cares and should care, and they can make fun of me for this. I'm a little worried because we start a game tonight at 6 o'clock Pacific time, and it's only going to be about 60 degrees, and I'm suddenly realizing I don't know if I brought a long-sleeve sweatshirt that I can wear on TV. So I might be a little cold tonight. Who knows? St. Patrick's Day. It's weird that I'm always out here on St. Patrick's Day other than last year, because about 13, 14 years ago, before I had the job that I currently have, and before I was married, but I was dating the same person, I came out here because at the time, it was probably 14 years ago, at the time I knew, and this is what you do when you're younger, I knew I could travel out to Arizona, and I knew there was a house that I could crash with my girlfriend, with Nick Camino, in the WTAM house. So we came out here, and we had a buddy that lives in Vegas, and we were like, yeah, let's do St. Patrick's Day in Arizona. We'll go to a game. We'll go out, in Arizona. It's a Saturday. It should be one of the best St. Patrick's Days, ever, right? We all grew up in Northeast Ohio. If you grew up in Northeast Ohio, St. Patrick's Day, for whatever reason, maybe because it's cold, maybe because we got a lot of white people. I don't know. There's a lot of white people everywhere, so I won't use that excuse. But we were thinking, Arizona will be like Akron, like Cleveland. St. Patty's Day, the world stops. I went to a Catholic high school, and I think I learned I was allowed to drink at 15 years old when I was at St. V because of St. Patrick's Day. And so we come out here, my buddy, who I'll remain nameless if he listens to the podcast. Good to see you. Good to hear from you, brother. I know you'll be texting and laughing that I'm telling this story. So we meet at the game. It was like a 1 o'clock Saturday game. Indians were playing. It's St. Patrick's Day. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get wasted. I'm not going to drink too much before. I'm not going to pull a Zach Jackson at an Indians game because I might see people that I work with or around or whatever else. And we proceed. We get to the game at 1 o'clock. Jen has like one or two. I have one or two. And my buddy from Vegas shows up. I don't know how, because he drove from Vegas. And Vegas is like a 3.5, 4 hour drive from where I'm at here in Goodyear, Arizona, to Vegas. And he shows up, and he's already like tanked at the game. And it's like the third inning. And I'm like, how in the world are you tanked already? And he's like, we stopped before we came in for and had mimosas, whatever. So I'm like, and I look at Jen, and I was like, there's no way we're going to make it all day. But he's from Cleveland. And he's like, bullshit, I'm going to make it all night. Well, he ended up making it all night, which was fine. And what we found out, the whole point of this, the genesis of the story is St. Patrick's Day is not big in Arizona at all. We went out that night into the Glendale area right next to the football stadium where they have all their bars, all their restaurants and everything else. And it was just another Saturday night. And the disappointment of 5 to 6 kids, all from Northeast Ohio, thinking they were going to come to Arizona and tear it up on St. Patty's Day. It crushed us because there was no St. Patty's Day celebrate. I mean, yeah, there were, it just wasn't the same. The Irish bars kind of was like, yay, but it wasn't what we have in Northeast Ohio. I know in our last podcast, I think you were worried that today would be amateur day and everybody would screw up everything we got going on with COVID.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with that, and I hope that that's not the case. But St. Patrick's Day, a day that used to be like one of my favorite days of the year, being a black Irishman, not that big in Arizona where I'm usually at now. St. Patrick's Day. So
it's supply and demand,
Exactly. A lot of things I learned about Catholic high school.
But before we start talking about the Ohio State basketball tournament and I get in trouble anyway, I do want to talk, Dre, about pandemic spring training, pandemic baseball, and what your level of connection to the rest of the sports world is, because I'm quite sure you're under some different regulations and working some strange hours out there, and and you just haven't been anywhere. But before I forget, because you said on Twitter you wanted to talk about this, and I want to know too. Francisco Lindor had some interesting comments about feeling disrespected, I guess, that people called him Frankie. You know him, I don't. To me, that was common. I just, before we got too far, I didn't want to, it's like a lot of other things. They go away quickly, but I know that a lot of people have interest in this, so I just wanted to make sure we got it out there specifically because we don't have like an elite item here as we're rambling through this today.
Right, which will make this one fun. I'm glad you brought it up and you remember, because usually when we want to remember something, neither
exactly we never do.
No, so that's a big move that Zach remembers that this person asked about this. I'm glad you asked, because there's a lot to it to me. And I know when it first happened, I was like, the whole Frankie Francisco thing first happened, I was like on vacation at Hawking Hills with my family, and I like laughed. And people on Twitter were, I had text messages and I had, Twitter, everybody. Well, what do you think? You call him Frankie every day, and I just didn't answer anybody. But what I did do is I text Frankie the name Frankie 25 times in a row and said that sure is lazy. And because that's the type of person I am, I won't even put the word that I was going to put on it. If you know me, you know that I push buttons, and I sent that to him. Here's what I'll say. I am not perfect in any shape, way, or form. I'm working every day to be the best person I can be before I try to be the best reporter I can be. I will never I might mess with someone's name up. That's only because I've got Doug Deacon tongue at times, and I mumble through certain things, or I try to say things too fast. And I apologize to anyone that I say their name wrong, or I don't pronounce every letter the way it should. I'll admit I have trouble with that sometimes. But I know one damn thing for sure. And I've told Mr. Lindor this in the last few days, and we're fine. There's no way in the world I was ever lazy in what I called or did not call him, because the one thing I do, and I know Tom Hamilton does this as well, the first thing we do when a guy gets called up, or when a player gets called up, or when you meet him in spring training, is you introduce yourself and you say to them, okay, what do you like to be called? What do you like? Where are you from? All those things. And I know for 100% sureness, when Francisco Lindor was called up, for people that forget or people that don't know, we were in Detroit, and it was happenstance. We walked into the first day he walked into a big league park as a big leaguer. He walked in with me, and it was just because I happened to be walking into the park at the same time. And one of the first things I said to him as we were walking in, and we knew each other from spring trainings. It wasn't like it was the first time I was meeting him, but I remember saying, and I brought this up to him last week or 2 weeks ago. I looked him right in the eye. I go, all right, Frankie, what do you want to be called? What do you? And he said, Dre, I don't give a shit what you call me. Just don't call me an asshole, and start laughing. That was 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, whatever. There were plenty of other times where I've gone to him because they're early in his career. I remember someone tweeting at me saying, why are you calling him that? Blah, 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 blah. Anyone that's listened to this podcast that ever knew or watched how I covered Francisco Lindor, if you covered the Indians in the last 6 years and you came to the Indians clubhouse, there's a pretty good chance you heard he and I yelling at each other from across the clubhouse about anything, whether it be my shoes, what I'm wearing, his feet. We were like you and your brother growing up. We yelled and screamed at each other, laughed, made fun of each other every single day. I went to him again and asked him about his name 4 or 5 years ago. He said, Dre, whatever you call me, it's cool, man. Don't worry about it. So I don't really give a flying fuck what he's told the New York media. But I'm not mad about it either, because I kind of foresaw some of this stuff coming. Frankie is a young dude who's got he wants to be great. And he wants to be the star of the town. And I think he's getting ready to learn, Zach, that you better be careful and bite off more than you can chew. I think he said this to me, and I know I've said it on the podcast before. We had a running thing that we've said for years. he would make fun of me sometimes, or we would make fun of each other, and he would kind of say, you better eat up all the Lindor time you can get before you better become a star while I'm here. And he goes, because you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. And I would always say back to him, you're gonna miss me when you're gone. And I think what happened in that, and I'm not putting anybody down, and I hope New York media is listening to this. I could see Francisco sitting around a room, and and this is the hard part of our jobs, but everybody has different ethics, Zach. But I don't know this for a fact, I have texted with Francisco since this happened. We are fine. He called me a dick because I kept just sending Frankie over and over again, because that's me. I'm childish. But what I'm guessing, and this is just my pure speculation, is that Francisco was sitting in a room with probably all the writers or all the radio and TV team, like he would do with us at times. And they probably asked him, and now that he's an adult, or he sees himself as a big time adult who's going to take over New York, and he's a dad now. And Frankie sounds more childish, even though he doesn't realize everybody has a nickname. And usually if you call somebody a nickname, that's an endearing quality. That means I like you, and we really like you more when we call someone a nickname. I think he went to their play-by-play guy and their guys and was kind of like, no, call me Francisco. Those guys in Cleveland were lazy when they said that. Now, as a reporter, Zach, when you get that flippant comment, I think you may write in a story, we're going to call him Francisco Lindor, despite him being called Frankie in Cleveland. I think if Tom Hamilton hears that, or Andre Knott hears that, or Matt Underwood hears that, we would just go in the air and say he's going to go by Francisco Lindor going forward. Some people, especially when you're in New York and you want to have the first, big story, or have the something no one else has, and you're in New York and you want to separate yourself as a reporter, you go live on the air and you say the exact quote, and you put him out there and make him have to swim in it, right? Yeah. Where most reporters would just put that as a side note. I think what Lindor is finding out, and as I told him, you miss me, motherfucker. Because now every little thing you whisper, he's got to be careful what he says and what he does not say. Because, and every athlete goes through this and gets covered every day, right? Like, there's all kinds of little things I hear in passing that I would never say on TV, that I'll never say on radio.
Yeah, I have three thoughts, and especially numbers 2 and 3 I want you to build upon. But number one, it's given the state of things in the world, it's just nice for me to sit here and know that a Puerto Rican and an Irishman can get along. Number 2, I would just say that everybody goes through a breakup, right? Whether you're 12 or you're 46, and sometimes 50 times in between. Everybody leaves a job, and like, you have feelings, right? And it can be the silliest, littlest thing, but it gets out. And even if you left a job or left a relationship and you have all great vibes about it, like, there were little things that bother you or little things that went on, and at some point you let them out. Us normal folks, we let them out to our best friend or to our mom or to our neighbor, right? And he lets them out publicly. And that goes along with number 3, which is just that, in today's Twitter world, little silly things get blown up. And they usually last 15 minutes, sometimes a day and a half, right? But he was a big deal here for a long time. Baseball wants him to be a big deal for a long time. And it goes back to what you said, like, he's going to understand that from a national perspective, in being what he wants to be, and being what baseball wants and maybe needs him to be, right? Like, everything he says is going to become that, and does, it's going to become that discussed thing. So, like, this is the problem that we have. And you mentioned, like, from what I do, we die for guys to be open and tell us what really happened and what they really thought and what really was and wasn't a big deal to them in a certain moment, right?
And he's great at doing that, but it's about to bite him in the butt.
But then, and then guys change, and then we're all screwed. Like, I hope the world of podcasting allows guys to open up and do that. But then you take it back to the locker room, to the clubhouse, to whatever, and sometimes guys just aren't going to go there anymore,
Right.
Like,
well, yeah. And I get that. And I get where players don't trust. And that's something he's going to have to go through. He's going to have to go through, how much does he trust the New York people? How much does he trust the guy that does my job? How much does he trust? Because everybody's going to smile on you. And New York media is different. Let's be honest. every course of media is different, and there's not going to be just it's just not going to be 4 main people he's going to see every day. So he's got to understand, and he's got to see how much do you want to give. Can I sit and and maybe he can, and I have no jealousies in this. I mean, he and I had a running joke, and one of my friends told him years ago that they were like, Dre, when he leaves, you leave. And he's made that, and he's like texted and messed around. He's like, I don't know why you're still there. I thought our deal was you leaving when I'm leaving. And I'm like, dog, I'm good. I'm in a good place, I think. I go, if they don't renew my contract next year, come get me. The other part of this, and I want to mention it, and this is where I think Frankie needs to be careful. He's Frankie in my phone, so I'm calling the motherfucker Frankie. I can always be lazy. I won't be the first person to call me lazy or the last. Him being Puerto Rican, and I'm not Latin, but I'm trying to have a better understanding of what Latin guys go through. Just like sidebar, I will stand just as proudly and stand up for the Asian community as I did for the Black community, as I will for women. Anybody that feels like they're in a place where they need other people's voices to help them through their struggle, I'm going to be there for their struggle. And I hate what's happening to Asian Americans and Asians across the country right now, and it just continues to show. Just continues to show how much people really don't understand life, and just the lack of intelligence that we will use upon people to take out our own fears on them. And it's ridiculous, and we grow out of that shit. More people need to step to people that they know that think like this and tell them how fucking ridiculous they are. Anyway, I know with some guys that are of Latin descent, that they sometimes feel like when Americans get their names and give them nicknames, that they're disrespecting their Latin names. I would never do that purposely. And I think, and I wanted Lindor to know that. Because I know that there's been whispers, he feels like, the Americans can be lazy at times with our names because they can't pronunciate them. Well, I can pronunciate Francisco, asshole, so that would never be the reason why I would do that. Now, there's others that I can't. I think the one thing that Lindor, I hope other Latin players, and I know I've gone to Latin players with this, heck, what was the running joke with Doug Deacon and I when we were doing Browns, when we would get guys from the island Samoans and island guys, he was and Deke would basically be like, all he can do 2. I won't make fun of him the way I want to, but I'll just say this. If Francisco feels a certain way and he wants to be respected for his Puerto Rican heritage and he wants people to say his Puerto Rican name, then just stand up and say that in the very beginning. And I believe everybody would do that. And I think the true lesson to all of this, and I can move on from it. If you want to be called something, if you feel a certain way and you want to be respected a certain way, then you have to be man or woman enough to stand up in front of a room and say that. If that was done, then this wouldn't even be a point of contact. It wouldn't even be talked about. Also, in a Sports Illustrated article, he talked about falling asleep during the Game 7 of the World Series, taking a nap. And people have made a big deal about that. I don't know why. You tell me one person you've met, Zach, that doesn't like taking a good nap during work, if they're allowed to.
Yeah, no, I mean, it just jumped up because of the circumstance. But
why?
Well, because it was Game 7 of the World Series.
But you've been at a ballpark since noon, and it's like 11:30 p.m., and you're tired out of your mind, and mentally you've been dragging the whole time.
Yeah.
If you think you can grab 15 minutes to recharge yourself, you would do it, right?
No, listen, these guys specifically that play at this high level, they live in the extremes, right? And then they all deal with the come down differently, right? Like,
sure.
Some guys get to the stadium on Sunday morning exactly when they know the TV cameras will be there. Yep. Some guys get there 3 minutes before they got to be there so they don't get fined.
Yep.
And some guys get there 6 hours early because every toe has to be taped a certain way. Every song that they've listened to since 10th grade has to be listened to twice, right?
Yep.
The water has to be consumed. The broccoli has to be consumed. The meditation has to do, like, everybody has their own routine to get to there and to stay there, right? So, like, it struck me as this is headline worthy, but it did not surprise me. Now, obviously, I've never played anything at that high of a level, but yes, like different guys wind themselves.
Yes, I'm glad you just said that, though, because I like having perspective of another reporter because we all sit in these interviews. Like I've just done nothing but interview guy, and it's been awesome the last 2 days. Now that I've passed all my tests and I'm actually in the bubble, I guess, it has been tremendous to sit. And I'm not bragging. I'm saying this to you as a fellow reporter because you'll respect this. It's been like Christmas the last 2 days to actually sit in the same room with guys, and do interviews again. It's been. I'm so thankful to Major League Baseball, and I haven't done very much, and I haven't been out anywhere, and I haven't even had a drink since I've been in Arizona. This might be the healthiest thing that's happened to me during the pandemic. But you said that that's a headline. When you hear Game 7, you took a nap, and you're like, that's a headline. And I guess now that I hear you say it that way, I would say, oh, yeah, that is a part of the story. And maybe I'm too far into the bubble. You know what I mean? Like, and not meaning the pandemic bubble, but just being in the bubble, being around guys and players. Because you're right. I remember before football games when I would get to peek in, half the team would be in a mosh pit. The other, a fifth of the team is praying. And then you got the guys that are in the club dancing still half naked in front of their own teammates, showing how they know every dance and they went to a club last night. Like, there's just differences. And I guess here's what I would give in to add into the sleeping story. Lindor was notorious for coming to the ballpark early. And this is part of the reason. And I'm not here to give excuses for him. I just know his routine. He came to the ballpark. And the one thing that everybody respected about him from the very beginning is he figured out a routine. Michael Brantley helped him get it going, and he stuck to it. For a 7 o'clock game, he'd get to the ballpark at 12, 1 o'clock. He'd have batting practice early. He would do fielding drills at 3 o'clock, and then he would take a nap. Like, it was known, for 2 hours, an hour and a half before first pitch, Frankie was somewhere in the clubhouse, somewhere in the building, taking a nap. There are many guys that do that. So I guess for me, I'm like, I know there's certain guys that take naps when time stops. There's other guys. Like Brian Shaw in that same time. By the way, I know people won't love hearing this. I love Brian Shaw. He has not changed one bit, and I'm pretty sure he's going to make the team. He's throwing pretty hard. He's hilarious. And this is the first time I've ever been in a clubhouse and locker rooms. The players are more excited to see me than I am to them because they just haven't seen anybody in it yet. But the last thing I'll just say on the Lindor thing, it didn't jump out as a story to me because I've known him, and I know that he likes to take naps. So and at the same time, while he was taking a nap, Brian Shaw was right behind the dugout throwing a ball into a wall for 20 minutes straight, yelling at me to go get the tarp off the fucking field. So there's just different, there's different ways people deal with preparing for the Game 7 of a World Series.
It's funny you say that, too, because I want to share this because you and I were texting about this the other night and while you were still finishing your quarantine, and you were like, this is completely relatable. Monday morning, I went to the Kent State Pro Day. And, of course, I had to have permission. Of course, I had to follow protocol and all of that. But, like, Sunday, not even night, but afternoon, all the way through till 5 seconds before I walked out the door Monday morning, I was like a kid at the first day of school. And not that I was that excited. I mean, I was. But, guys, I haven't covered an event in a year.
I know.
There are a number of things that I've had to make sure that I have presentable clothing for. In a year, I can count on one hand. And so It was in the morning, and free agency period started at noon. So I had to not only get there and be there, but be ready in case there was a huge trade or a huge move. And, even in normal times when we can go to pro days, one, I've never been to one that started on time, ever. And two, when you're me, yes, you're going there and, if you can tweet out the 40 time and you're getting your access, whatever. But, the main thing is you're hoping like hell that somebody – and I knew no GMs would be there because free agency was starting, right? But, you're hoping like hell that you can just catch up with some scout, just to get some background stuff. And if that goes 2 hours after the pro day, then that's right. So, there was this huge checklist of – okay, I have to wear pants. All right, where are my pants? Okay, yeah. I have to be plugged in. Oh, ooh, that's tough. I have to have my laptop and my laptop charger. I have to have a notebook. I have to have my recorder. All of those things just haven't done in a damn year. Right. So it was when I was done, it was like a mentally exhausting thing, and came back and the Browns made the one. But it's different times. It just is.
Right.
So,
you said something else, so that's perfect. And I hope, and that's the same thing that happened to me. And I'll get back to where you're going. I got into the Indians club, into the building finally. This is Monday, and I won't say any names, but you just said it when you talk about talking to scouts. I got a ton of great stuff on tape that people will see throughout the next month, next week, next month. Fox 8's been running stuff. Tristan McKenzie's got some cool stuff that'll run today and tomorrow. Roberto, and I got a cool story on Logan Allen coming. They'll all be on Fox 8 over the next few days. But I sat down with a couple different coaches and talked to them without the mics on, and I literally could have got back on a plane, went to Cleveland, and been ready for opening day. Like in like an hour, just having a conversation, just like, and BSing. Like, what's up with this guy? What's up with this guy? So you know how much I miss doing that part of my job, where you really learn about the team and you learn about what you're actually supposed to be looking for. I miss that, Zach. I miss like you said, when you just talk to a scout who can tell you more about athletes that are getting drafted than anyone else without doing it and telling on people, without telling everything that they're going to do. You need that in this business.
Yeah. No, one of my favorite memories is the Ohio State Pro Day, the big one, 5-6 years ago. Zeke, Joey Bosa, all those guys, right? And
right.
I remember it being over or about to be over. Anyway, there was like off to the side. I think maybe Joey Bosa wasn't going to do the workout, and then he decided to. Well, anyway, all of a sudden the tension shifted to one corner of the field house. And Joey Bosa is going to go through the bags, right? Well, Joey Bosa is an incredible football player. He's had an incredible career. As far as college football players go, he's one of the best that we've seen at his position in a long, long time, right? Like, Obviously he can go through the bags, right? And so I just happened to walk into, as everybody was shifting to one corner, to a scout that worked at the Browns a million years ago and who I've known and I talked to at these events. And I bring this up, like, is this really this big of a deal? And he goes, it's funny you say that. He goes, because look, like, whoever was first in line, goes, this guy was the best player in his high school and the best player for 4 counties. This guy was a 3-time, Big Ten, honorable mention, whatever, played 1 million football games, is probably going to get a shot in the NFL. He's like, no, watch him go through the bags. He's done it 1,000 times too. He goes, no, watch Joey Bosa do it. He goes, so even the best of the best, that's where they show you, because they're just so much different. And these guys are out looking for the different, the best of the best, the biggest freaks. So these pro days have some value. Now this year's different because it's the only exposure that they get to these guys, right? But like, you see that, and that's when you truly appreciate the really good to the holy shit, wow,
Well, we've always said that. Just tell people the first time we saw Braylon Edwards walk out to practice. I was telling this story last night to somebody. I was just like, because I don't know how Braylon came up. He was a Michigan guy. And I go, Zach Jackson and I always marveled at no matter how stupid and how dumb certain things Braylon said, and how he had Team B and Chanel was telling him he should learn about Brian Sipe the day he was drafted and all that other shit, because he said he didn't know anybody that wore 17 with the Browns. Typical Braylon moment. But despite all of that, I remember standing next to you when he walked out to practice first time, and we both, our mouths dropped. Because on a field full of thoroughbreds, he stood out.
Yeah. Like, amazingly, he did. And that's what, the Browns are looking for. Quick thought, because I want to continue this discussion, but I do want to say this. Dre, they've made 2 signings as of this recording. Tack McKinley, former first-round rusher, who you remember is the guy that dropped the F-bomb in the interview after the night he got drafted.
Don't you wish people could hear like some of our pre-show conversations?
Had a good start to his career. His last 2 seasons ended in injury. Kept getting waived last year because he was hurt, and he had a Twitter blow-up with the Falcons. Then teams kept claiming him, and he wouldn't pass their physical, so they'd put him back out there, and other teams would claim him. And I don't know. I mean, he's 25, and if he can be healthy, he can help your pass rush. He's not a starter, but it's a good, low-risk proposition. They did pretty much guarantee his 1-year salary, so the hope is that, he's going to be – the thought is he's going to be in the rotation, and the hope is that he can give you something, and then you can move miles around and things like that. They're not done there yet. As far as John Johnson, the safety, he fits what you would like if you're going to spend in free agency. He's only 25. He can play different positions. He called the signals. Like, everybody speaks highly of him as a person and a player. Like, gives you a lot of options. Now, the easy thought, and I had this too, is we're going to see three safeties a lot more than we saw last year. That's a trend around the league. And last year, I just don't think we saw a lot of how the Browns really want to play defense because of the personnel issues. The other thing I think is it's a hedge on Grant Delpit. Like, you drafted this guy high last year and thought that he would be different, and maybe he still will be. But when a 21-year-old misses a whole year, and is he really, even if he's physically cleared and back to 100% speed, that's a big if. Like, is he really ready to go? So we'll see in that regard. I trust the Browns. I trust that they have a plan. I think they intended to have a real pass rusher by now. I'm not buying that they were totally willing to sit out. It just didn't go their way, but I trust that they're ready for this. It is a little interesting because safety is less premium, I guess is the word, than pass rush, than corner.
Right.
But, it's like I said, the whole vibe is different. One, this is unprecedented territory for the Browns, being good and trying to get better and dealing with guys you have to actually extend. And two, like, you just have worries about the cap. And yes, you can go through and restructure guys and convert to bonuses and push things ahead, but you pay for them eventually. And if it looks like a methodical approach, I'm fine with that. I need to see more eventually. And the Browns are a desirable destination for guys who get cut in May and get cut in August, and that's what's different too. But like, we all watched this defense last year, guys. It was awful. So I am totally fine with starting with safety because I've always thought the safest way to use free agency is to just take an area of weakness and at least patch it up, if not turn it into a semi-strength. And the safety play last year was god-awful. So in that regard, you start from there, and I'm fine with it.
Well, Sadejo was a bad word to say last year for a reason in Northeast Ohio. So I think you said something, and I want to touch on that part, and then we can move on to something else. I think it's easy for us to sit around and think we know what the Browns need in our minds and how we see things. And this is the fight that I've had, and I know there's a Twitter follower out there that I love that always wanted to kill the Browns defensive coordinator. I don't think we ever saw the Browns play the defense the way that they want to play defense. And as you said, the way they want to play defense and the way a lot of teams are playing defense nowadays is playing two linebackers, three safeties, and that's basically your base defense. The Browns didn't have the Jimmies and Joes to run the defense that the defensive coordinator runs. So it's hard to judge the defense or judge the defensive coordinator when he didn't have the bodies. So you may have suddenly guys in the front end are going to look a lot better than the guys did in the front end last year because the back end should be more to the speed of what they have. And Zach, let's be honest. We've talked about it on the podcast. Delpit, when you draft a guy that high, and the guy that you didn't draft and Winfield ends up, helping his team go to the Super Bowl, you're damn right they're doubling down on Delpit. He's a second-round pick. You draft guys on the second day of the draft, you expect them to play 50, 60, 70 snaps a night. His Achilles snap, but to them, they've already put a lot into the safety position with this kid. And after you saw what you saw last year, he better be able to play.
Yeah, that's a heck of an investment, right? So, and like I said, I've said this, and especially over the last couple of years, I've made sure to clarify my thinking on this. Like, good, bad, or indifferent, and it's usually one of the last two, you never judge a guy on his rookie year. But him not having one, it's just so important because it's not as much the results or the Sundays or the rehab as it is just the going through the season and having a bad play and having a good one and going through the grind of, okay, where is your best spot? How are teams attacking you? What's the feel? What can you really do? Because until you get out there, you just don't know, right? And so, like, Grant Delpit's pedigree, Thorpe Award winner, big-time recruit, national champion, like, everything says that he's a potential second-round steal. But he's got to get out there and do it and get better and show he's healthy before he's done anything in the NFL. I mean, right now he's had 3 NFL practices. So, we'll see what happens there. I think You'll continue to see them add to the defense. The nature of this beast seems to be one-year deals and different guys. They've got to get more experience. They've got to get better. Why does safety make sense, Dre? Because last year no lead was safe, right? So it can't just start there. Eventually you got to get better, but I think that's a fine starting spot if you're going to say, okay, hey, we could get one guy on Monday and you feel good about him. I think that's a fair place to start.
Very fair, very fair. I think free agency. I think AJ Green just signed here with the Cardinals. I've said this to you before, and if I said it on the podcast before, please ride with us. I drove around yesterday when I left the facility because I didn't go to the game yesterday, and I just listened to Arizona Sports Talk. And obviously, it's free agency talk out here right now. And they were talking about wide receivers. And I almost wanted you to listen to what they were talking about because, I just saw it. What's the deal for AJ Green? It's like, I think it's 2 years or 1 year, $8 million.
Yeah, 1 year, $8 million. It looks like, yeah.
$8 million. And they were kind of bragging out here in Arizona. They were freaking out because they wanted either T.Y. Hilton and they were looking at how receivers were signing yesterday. And they're like, well, maybe our GM knows what he's doing and the prices aren't going to be as high and the contracts aren't going to be as long term. And it was just funny to listen to another group of fans and hosts freak out about free agency. But I did have this thought, and I don't want to have this thought, but I had this thought when I see AJ Green, who, look, last year just his timing was off with the quarterback. He hadn't played really in 2 seasons. He wasn't getting open the way he used to get open, and I'm just using it. And I didn't watch all of AJ. I didn't watch every cut of AJ Green. He just didn't look like AJ Green, right? And I've been a big AJ Green fan. He only gets an $8 million deal to come to Arizona. It's like a prove it deal, right? I'm all about keeping OBJ, so this is just a conversation piece. And I'm a big Jarvis. I'm a big Jarvis guy. But when you see AJ Green trying to get a bounce back year for $8 million. And there was another receiver, and because don't you put OBJ and AJ Green kind of in the same category? Guys that their best may be behind them a little bit.
Well, no doubt. I mean, AJ's a lot older than Odell.
Yeah.
But going back to our prior discussion day, AJ's first couple years, I would go to Bengals training camp, and you would watch that cat glide, and you're like, the other guys are human beings, and he's not, right?
Yes,
watching him go through drills. And remember. The other thing that probably relates best to him in terms of the Browns, people, Cleveland people listen to this. Joe Hayden went on a run where Joe Hayden was a damn good corner, a top 5 corner for a several-year period. And Joe Hayden had some games where he clamped everybody, but who's the one guy he never did it to?
AJ.
He
could not clamp AJ.
Yes.
And it went back to college, too. Remember, they went at Florida and Georgia. And AJ just had – and you're right. I'm glad you said it about Joe. Because Joe is a pro's pro, and he's not going to be a top 5 corner the rest of you. But when you make it to 10 years as a cornerback in the NFL, you're a dynamite. You're unbelievable. Think about it. The average career is 3.5 years. You make it to year 10 in a position where your legs are the most important thing for you. You're in a different category, and I know that's hard for people to understand that listen to this, but that's a position that you don't go 10 years. But I guess what I'm looking at, and when I'm saying this, when you look at free agency and how easy or hard it is for us in our minds because when you really want somebody, all right, what did you say to me when Trey, and if you want to have, can you have this conversation out loud? The conversation we had when the Bengals spent gobs of money for a guy that I think's a good player, but I don't think he's great. That's my opinion.
Yeah, we can have that conversation.
Okay. And I think I texted you and I was like, is everybody freaking out because they didn't get – is it Hendrickson? What's his last name?
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson's who they ended up with, yes.
Yes. And the Bengals paid him a lot of money. And, Zach, let me say this. I know he had his best numbers in sacks last year. But the things that worry me – and this is not fair because some free agents turn out fine. But the things that concern me, played on turf, played in the dome. I know there wasn't fans, but he got to play opposite a lot of good pass rushers. He got to play in a defense that was blitz heavy. That you probably were doubling the other defensive end most of the time. Hey, he got the numbers. He got the sacks. I will not take that from him. But when you go to the Bengals, the circumstances are going to be way different when he lines up on September whatever, and the guy on his opposite side, talented, young, good, but not the guy he lined up opposite side in New Orleans. And, like we've always said, and I compared it to Kevin Schaefering to you on the phone. And I was like, remember when he signed with the Browns and he was going to be he was the right tackle for Michael Vick, but everybody was sure he could move over to left tackle, and they gave him all this money. And we knew with the first play of the game against the Saints, didn't he get blown up?
The first play of the 2006 season, the touchdown to Braylon, God, we're talking about Braylon, was called back because Kevin Schaefer was holding.
Yes. And I remember, like, you and I instantly going, but I thought this guy could play left tackle. We knew after one play, his first play as a Brown, he had an oh shit moment. Our point is, a lot of GMs and scouts lose their jobs projecting guys in this time of the year.
Well, I would say this, because it played out really strangely. If it was anybody but the Bengals and they let Carl Lawson out the door, I'd say, man, there must be something up with Carl Lawson. Because it's the Bengals, you're like, okay. And the Bengals, listen, like, I said I covered them. Like, we've had some frank discussions. The Bengals are different. The Bengals maybe don't deserve all of the shit they get from the outside world, but they deserve some of it. They do things differently, right? They don't sit on a pile of wealth. They have a way of doing things that they've stuck to for years. Fact is, they went on about a 6 or 8 year run of drafting really well, and then went on about a 6 or 8 year run of good football. They didn't get past the first round, but they were really good for a long time by NFL standards, right? Their drafts have fallen off. The defense has been putrid. And now you let Carl Lawson and William Jackson both out the door? So they did give Hendrickson a lot of money. They front-loaded it in case it doesn't work. We'll see. You could say they went and got their number one pass rusher. The Browns haven't done that.
Yeah.
The Ravens let their top 2 pass rushers out the door. So we'll see. It's been interesting. It's most interesting for the wide receivers to be 3 days in and Kenny Galladay is not there. It's not a surprise Rashard Higgins is going to wait, but every hour that goes by, we go back to what somebody told me last week, there's not as much money outside waiting for Rashard Higgins as there is these projections say there are. Put it that way.
Hot Rod Higgins going to have to stay in somebody's basement in Cleveland.
Yeah.
To stay on the Browns.
Well, it'd be interesting because the Browns are still paying a lot of money. Higgins are not. The Browns are still paying a lot of money to wide receivers. And you add John Johnson to the mix, next year there's 12 Browns players making $9 million or more on the books. Obviously, Jarvis or Odell, they're not both going to be at 16. But, that 12 doesn't include Chubb and Teller. So...
No. But I don't. What you're saying, and this is great. I love it. It's kind of like our conversation earlier on Lindor. That's a great storyline for Zach Jackson of The Athletic to write about and keep in mind. I say, because we've had discussions about caps in the NFL, Zach, and we've talked about how certain teams just, the Rams. Why can't the Rams keep a good safety like this? Because they've thrown money around left and right for years and just balled out and went year to year and said, we'll deal with the cap later. Why are the Steelers backpedaling but still keeping guys and guys are taking hometown discounts? Because they basically said, screw the cap. We're going to do whatever it takes to overcome it and get around it. Why is Russell Wilson and the Seahawks battling back and forth? Because they paid him big money, and then they don't want to pay anybody on offense, and they've kind of pieced it together offensively because Pete Carroll wants to put all his money into defense. And when you pay a quarterback a ton of money, suddenly you got to skim on other things. My point to all of this is I don't care about the Browns' money situations. More money is going to be on the cap next year. They have saved more money than we can even discuss or talk about on this podcast in the last 10 years, and you figure it out. If Jarvis Land, if you get to the second round of the playoff, this is just a thought. Let's say you win a playoff game next year. Somebody will probably throw a parade because that's what we do in Northeast Ohio. You're telling me, and you know how I am, whether it's Jarvis or OBJ, and I want them both on the team. You make it to the second round of the playoffs, and you come back to them and at this time next year, and you say, hey, guys, we love having you. We don't want to break this up, but we got to do something contract-wise to keep you guys on this team, or we got to move different. If one of those guys doesn't want to move money into a signing bonus or move money into a following year and would rather go out in free agency at the ages they're at and attempt to see what they can get, then here's a word, kids. If you got kids in the car, turn the radio down for a second and turn it back up. If they don't want to reassign and do what good teams do with their players when they get to that point, fuck them. I feel Like, so I don't worry about it. Like, because I think at this point in time in football and in our world, if you can't look in the mirror and understand that maybe you got to take a little bit less for the great situation you're in, then I don't want you on my team.
Well, I'm not going to argue anything you said there. I'm going to offer one point of clarification just for this here. And that is, there's a lot of reasons if the Browns want Odell to come have a big year, including, like you just said, winning a playoff game and chasing a championship because you're there for the first time in forever, right? And there's reasons that you can't trade Odell this year, and that's that $12 million of his money's guaranteed, and he's currently got one knee, right?
Exactly.
But there's another reason that the Browns want Odell to be good, and that's that a year from now he's under contract, but his contract is at the point that they can move him for exactly $0 of dead money. So they would love Odell to have a big year and then move on, then get something.
Helps everybody.
Right?
Helps everybody.
And, like, these are – we talked about personal when it comes to personnel decisions. Like, I think it matters that Nick Chubb is a no baggage, represent your organization, bust his ass, never say a word type of guy. And in relation to some other players, not just Browns players, I talked to someone last week who said, you better believe we take into account who the kind of guy is that would get on Instagram at 6 o'clock on Saturday night and really fuck up our season. Okay?
Right. For sure.
So,
for sure.
In the realm of that, like, you have to take it out and you have to understand, like, the Browns just haven't been here in terms of having 4 guys to extend. The Browns just haven't been here in terms of, okay, we need to move some money around to keep this team together. In an ideal world, like you said, Jared, we would keep them all. You'd keep them all together, and every person would want to be here. The fact is, Father Time's coming for J.C. Treader and for Joel Bitonio. They never miss a snap. They're tough-ass, smart-ass dudes who everybody in that building respects. Their cap numbers for 2022 are $10 million, and they're not getting any younger, right? Like, these are just the facts that eventually you got to make these decisions. The draft remains the lifeblood of your organization because you get young and cheap, controllable talent, but because you got to have guys ready that you trust and and you bring them up a certain way. The Browns have never done that, A, because they've drafted shitty, but B, there hasn't been a certain way to bring them up because everything's got blown up every year. The scheme, the guys picking the players, the guys setting the tone in the locker room, right? Like, Joel Bitonio is a unicorn. He's been here since 2014, right? J.C. Treader's a damn near unicorn. He's been here since 2016. For Miles, for Larry, for Denzel, like this is the first year they've played in the same defense 2 years in a row in 3 years. For Denzel, that's ever.
Amazing.
Right? So
amazing.
It's amazing. So you come to this and it's good. It's good problems to have. It's a sign that you're good. And ideally you would like to have that. The fact is you're not. Things change, guys get hurt, guys underperform, guys get into a spot where they're just not welcome around, you don't want them around. Guys perform for the reason of knowing that there's more money out there. Some guys will stay, will reduce. I mean, I think what happens is online we all get caught up in, well, you could just renegotiate. Well, yeah, in the NFL you can convert bonus to that and pay for it later if you want that. But, like, when it comes to taking a pay cut, now we're in a different ballgame. Like, how many times do you see a guy, such and such team is willing to trade Johnny Jones? Well, the trade doesn't happen. He ends up getting cut. By the time it gets to that point, the team's done with him. He ain't taking the pay cut. The team ain't finding a trade partner. They're moving on. It's happened this week 6 times, right?
Well, yeah. Well, and you know the adage, I'd rather bet on me than trust you, right? And I get players that feel that way, but a lot of them end up making what the other team was going to give them, and now they got to move their whole family and hold on. Look, and I've said this, and I'm going through this with the Indians to kind of just to put a bow on this. And we've talked about it on the podcast, and we will continue talking about it. Nobody treats you like your first team treats you. Yeah. And I think that puts a pretty bow on what's going on with the Francisco Lindor in New York. He may make $300-400 million. I hope he makes every dime that he's worth. But he'll never have the relationships and have the situation and have the organization behind him the way he did in the original team that drafted him. It's the same thing that works in football. If Chubb wants to get the highest dollar that a running back can get in a year, then I'm sure everyone in Cleveland will tip their hat to him and say, thank you for all that you gave to us, Nick. Thank you for the years you took off your body and your legs. Good luck. and he'll get a lot of money from another team if that's really what the main thing is and the only thing that matters to him. But they'll never have the same regard and respect for him because once you're a hired horse, you're a hired horse, right? It's just kind of how it works. So this next year is going to be interesting. I will watch all the storylines that you and others that cover the Browns put out. But I'm going to tell you, from a straight fan perspective, I don't give a rip about the situation that they're going to have cap-wise. I expect a professional team to be able to maneuver and get around it and deal with it and still keep the best players on the team. Will there come situations where you're going to have to make a decision between, two great players? Sure. But you just made a good point. You're probably going to have to start reinvesting into the offensive line in 6 months, and maybe even in the draft in a month, because Shredder's a snap away. Heck, even your left guard, who has been just great, and I'm not trying to put a whammy on him, but he played with Joe Thomas.
Right.
So you don't know how much longer he has. It's a constant thing that you have to keep going. Hey, look, the Indians have produced some of the best young pitchers in baseball over the last 4 or 5 years. Now suddenly they need to produce some players in the field, some young players, that play every day. But then all of a sudden, because I had the scout say this to me, and he was talking about the constant cycle. He goes, yeah, some people are writing off that the Indians can't develop anymore. They don't have any more young pitchers in the minors. Well, it's like, well, the hope is the young pitchers that you have up here now can carry you for 3-4 years. In that amount of time, you use the young players that you have in the field position players, you get them going, and you start drafting more pitchers and start developing them. As the scout told me, the train don't stop. You just don't sit there and say, wow, we got a good big league team, or wow, we got an NFL team.
That's right.
The train and the wheels keep running in the NFL, NBA, and in baseball because you can't sit on your laurels and be happy because in 24 hours, 24 days, 24 months, it's going to look and feel and be different. It's just how it works.
It is. All right, how long are you out there?
I am out here for another solid week. We will have games. Today is Wednesday, St. Patrick's Day. We will be on the air live at 9 p.m. if you actually have Fox Sports or Sports Time Ohio. We are slowly but surely changing our branding name. In the next, I think you'll see some on the game if you can watch the game or you can get the game. We will start branding our new brand. You will hear Bally Sports. I believe we're Bally Sports Great Lakes is what the games will be on. So that's starting to change. For those that are asking about finding ways to see the game, I've been told they're working on Fox Sports Go will no longer be a thing here pretty soon. Bally's is working on having something like that, like an app that you can use or an app that you can get on to see games. I know that they're trying to get deals taken care of before baseball season starts. So I don't have any names or numbers of when that'll happen, but I've been told by our company they're working so more people can see Indians baseball starting April 1st. So we'll see how that works out.
And April 1st is opening day?
April 1st is opening day. The Indians will be in Detroit. We will be on TV this week, tonight, I believe tomorrow. Then again, no, actually we won't be on tomorrow. I lied. What's today? I got to look at it. Yeah, we're on today at 9 o'clock. Then we'll be on tomorrow at 4 o'clock against the Cubs. Then we won't be back on until Sunday, and then we'll do Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Then I'll come back home for a couple of days, and the season will start.
Now, will you be on the road when the team starts, or no? When the season starts?
As of right now, no. I'm taking what my camera guy and I, Mitch, who's unbelievable. He hasn't posted any of his videos yet on Instagram, but he's one of the best photographers in the business. When he does, please follow. You're going to see some really cool shit that he's shot out here. We're at Tier 2 right now for spring training. I think this is a little bit of a trial run to see if you can have people like me close to the team and stay out of trouble and follow all the rules. So far, knock on wood, I have been able to, and so is my camera guy. I think we're going to start the season like we did last year, Zach. But I think the hope is by at least at the latest All-Star break, they hope that I'll be back to normal and hopefully back on the road.
Right.
It could be earlier with how everything's going. It could be early. I'm hoping earlier. But I know that a month or so ago, the tentative plan was to hope that a country will be a little bit safer and that by July, I could go back on the road and go back to being normal. We're hoping it'll be sooner than that, though, now that it seems like things are moving pretty fast and people are getting vaccinations and all that other good stuff.
Have you seen a bracket?
I've glanced. I'm not. You got to pull me in. I tried to do a podcast with you when the bracket came out because I knew that was going to be I can't wait for the bracket for the season to start. Maybe it's because I've been living in a hotel room for the last week. I'm not giddy about it. I can't wait to watch the games, but I'm just kind of hype me up.
Like Friday morning, they're going to be
on
when you wake up out there.
Oh, on Thursday, yeah, I know it's going to be great. It's the greatest thing ever. And Friday, I don't. Oh, you just made me think of something else that I got to keep to myself. See, but I'm in the bubble, so I got to be.
Okay, time to sign off.
Yeah, well, but see, the first thing I thought was, oh shit, I really don't have to do that much work Friday. I can go watch, but at the same time, I can go watch, but it's like I get tested the next morning.
Yeah,
and the testing is you're spitting in this thing. They did blood tests on me. Like I got it's, and I respect it. It doesn't mean I'm crazy about it or I love it. And I'm sure the players feel the same way. I can only imagine they've been doing this, since last July. I don't love it, but I respect it.
Sure.
And I don't want to be. And I'll tell a quick story that I got to be careful with. So yesterday, I'm sitting in a room, in a big room, and we're all spaced out. And I'm getting done interviewing Eddie Rosario, who I think Cleveland fans are going to like a lot. And there's a PR person in the room. My camera guy's in the room. And you know how our phones are. They never stop. Like they always are buzzing, ringing, whatever. And I didn't answer a phone call during the interview. So as we had a pause and we were asking Eddie to do other stuff and do reads and different things, I looked down at my phone and I'm kind of like trying to turn it off and keep going off. And I can see in one of my messages, it says, I got a call from MLB. Well, part of the rules of how this thing works out here when you're in the bubble and you're in tier 2 or tier 1, if you pass your test, if you pass your last test that you took, you just get an email from the team saying, you're negative, you continue along, the process that you're going on. But if you fail a test, you get a phone call. So in my mind, Zach, I passed my first couple, everything has been good. I've gotten emails, but I'm interviewing somebody. So I'm not, my mind is, and I'm interviewing someone in a second language, and and I'm trying to get him to speak as much English as he can. I want him to be comfortable with me. So I'm like just focusing on, I got to get good words out of Eddie. And when I look down and see that I got a call from MLB, I freaked out, turned my mic off and run outside. And my camera guy's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're messing up our shot. And I didn't want to say to the whole room, I think I failed my test. Well, it had nothing to do with my test. I was fine. It was about a whole different situation, a different thing. But that's what's in your mind the whole time, because I don't want to be the guy that screws it up and gets somebody sick, or vice versa. So the first thought that went through my mind is the Indians play out in Scottsdale. It's a very nice area. It'd be a fun area to watch the rest of the games after the Indians play, but I won't be doing anything that first went through my mind.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you for listening.
Wait. You're a college basketball guy, and I got to get over to the park in a minute. But give me something. What are you looking into? Illinois' big dude looks like he was built to play back in the day when Patrick Ewing was at Georgetown.
Yeah,
I love the Patrick Ewing's Georgetown Hoyas stuck it to Madison Square Garden, and Patrick Ewing I don't know how great a coach he is, Zach, but he did do a great thing for his team and the type of team that he has in this time of the year. He took the focus completely off his kids after that first round game, and then they went and smoked the rest of the Big East. I thought that was a tremendous job by him. Shout out to him. He's now a better coach than Chris Mullen in my mind.
All right, so some teams that aren't number one seeds that I think could make a run. Texas, Alabama, Texas Tech, West Virginia.
Oklahoma State.
Some things that worry me, obviously, would be that this was just the strangest season ever, and it got over, and teams were immediately sent to Indy, mostly by bus, and had to sit in hotels and wait, and they'll play in front of 3,000 people, and it'll be weird. And it's been a weird year, so we'll see. I would expect the madness in March Madness. Cleveland State, shout out to Dennis Gates, who's done an amazing job, and they're a great story. I think Houston was really maybe the worst team they could have drawn, but we'll see. For the Ohio Bobcats, I think they got a good draw. Virginia has COVID issues, has not been able to practice this week, and will not even arrive until the day before the game. That's just something to keep in mind. Coach Bowles, I got a good story about him I'll tell later, but he was on the radio with Raj and Ken, I think, on Monday morning. Yeah, it's when I was driving to Kent. And this is what it's been. And shout out to all the players and the coaches, but especially the players this year who have been through this. And again, this is part of the reason I don't know anything that's going to happen. I thought Michigan was far and away the best team, and then they lost a starter last week to a broken foot, so I don't know that anymore. But he said his kids won the MAC, Dre, on Saturday night, and because of the protocol, they were not allowed to see their families after the game. They were locker room, lockdown to buses to Indy. So that just sucks, but it's the world we live in, and we'll see. I mean, for what most of us care about is there will be basketball on TV on Friday, and we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, we care about that, but I care more and more about what these kids are going through, and it sucks that these kids are going through those. And I thought about that. I was like, man, if these kids are winning, are they allowed to see their parents? And I get why they can't. But you know what? I'm staying positive. We hopefully are at the we're rounding, turn 4 at the Indianapolis 500.
I can get my shot next week here, so.
I'm getting mine as soon as I get off the plane. I've been trying to get one out here. We could do a whole podcast on how. All right, here's what we'll end on. Here's a story with Dre to hear how freaking crazy I truly am, and you guys can make fun of me. So, when I got out here, it was 55, and I'm just to the point, man. And we could have I know that there's black people, the Tuskegee. If you want to know why black people are afraid of vaccines, check that out. Check that story out. I've had conversations with family members about it. But I need to get back to regular life. I want to feel safe. I want to get back to being able to sit in rooms interviewing guys. I want to be able to go to bars with my fucking friends and be myself and feel comfortable. And until I'm comfortable, I'm not doing any of that shit. Just I'm not. So when I got out here, it's like a free-for-all. Arizona's just a different world, different state, obviously, in so many ways. And they actually they've had a site set up at the football stadium, Zach, for the last 3 weeks, 24 hours. You can go out and get a shot. So when I first got here, one of the equipment guys was like, Dre, they're like, if somebody has an appointment, you take them to get their appointment, they'll just give you a shot if you drive them. So I'm literally so when I was finally released, so I literally drove out there before I had to go into my quarantine to stay in my hotel room. And I texted my wife, Jen, and I was like, I'm just looking for somebody that's getting a shot so I can get me one. And she's like, what is wrong? And I took a picture, and I'm outside of the Arizona Cardinals stadium. And she's like, what the hell is wrong with you? I was like, I'm trying to get my shot. So obviously I couldn't. I go back to my hotel room, and I start doing research on how to get shots in Arizona or wherever else. So another guy told me, when you go to the local CVS or Walgreens or whatever, if they're running out, I've heard 3 different people tell me that they've been offered shots because, they had to get rid of the shots. So Monday, Mike Sarbaugh, third base coach for the Indians, sits down in the room across from me. I'm like, what's up, Sarby? How you doing? And he's like, what's up, Dre? And I go, how old are you, Sarbs? And he gives me this weird look. I go, you got your shot yet? And my camera guy's giggling in the background because he knows what I'm getting at. And Sarby's like, yeah, man, I can't get it yet, man. I'm not old enough. I go, damn, Sarby, you ain't 55? And he goes, did you really ask that because you wanted to take me to get a shot so you could get one? I go, you goddamn right. That's how I start interviews. So Sarby goes, Dre, if you just go to the pharmacy around 5:30, he goes, I've heard a couple times around 5:30 they're giving out shots if they're any or extra. So what do? I go to the game that day, and I go to the pharmacy at 5:30 and just walk up and down the aisles. I still ain't got one, but if one sneaks out, you better believe it's going in my arm. But I do have an appointment right when I land next Thursday, so it's perfect.
All right. Nice. Hey, thank you guys for listening. Thanks to Honeymoon. Thanks to Scene. Thanks to American Fireworks, always open at AmericanFireworks.com. Maybe the Bobcats pull off the upset on Saturday night. We get out there and shoot off some fireworks and celebrate.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys. As always, Dre, glad we could catch up this morning / afternoon. And as usual, we don't know when it'll be, but we promise we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Konnichiwa, Frankie. I'll call you Francisco, but I'm also always going to be lazy.